G'day, it's Jane from Thread My Bobbin, and today I've got an easy beginner-friendly tutorial on block 7 of Blockheads 6. The block is called Bellissimo Star. Now we've got half square triangles, flying geese and quarter square triangles. I'll use coloured thread so you can see where I stitch, and I'll give you a few tips and tricks to make it a little bit easier along the way. So grab your pattern, grab your fabric, and let's make the block. Once you have your blocks cut, pressed, you need to draw lines on the back. Now I've done a list of all the blocks that need a diagonal line, drawing a line corner to corner. And as you can see, there's quite a few blocks. If you do that at the start, before you begin to sew, you'll save time. I'll put time stamps through the video so you can find the sections you're looking for. And when we make the flying geese, I'll use coloured thread so that it's easy to see what I'm doing. So step 1, we take the 3 1/4 A squares. We're going to take the 3 1/4 B squares, and you're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch seam down each side of the line. Now if you're confident in your sewing and that you're not going to stretch the fabric, what you can do is simply cut this piece diagonally and these pieces diagonally and then just join them that way. That can be a much quicker way to do it, but I'll demonstrate this way as well. So we have a scant 1/4 inch seam either side of that, and now you'll cut down on the drawn line between those. So I'm going to press those open and then trim them. Okay, now to trim these, again, you don't need special rulers. I just use this is my 6 1/2 inch ruler. And what I've done, actually you can see it better here. What I've done is marked it with washi tape on the 2 3/4 inch line. I've actually marked it very slightly below the line so I can still see the line. And when you're trimming them, the main thing to get right in that first cut is the angle. You want that 45-degree line going straight through. And as you can see, here's our line. We've got plenty of fabric. And then now that I've done that first cut, I'm getting the line sits on the fabric. That's why I like to still be able to see the line, that it's on the edge of the fabric. And make sure that 45-degree angle is straight. And you have 16 of these. Step 2, we need to take 1 C square, 1 E square, and yes, that's a different color from when I started. We're going to cut those diagonally into 4 pieces. Okay, so we have C on the top, E on the side. They're going to be joined down through this center seam. Now, if you want to be able to spin the seam, you need to put them through with the blue on the top. So we need to sew down here and down here, putting them through this way, okay, means that we can spin the seam and it will lay flatter. So that's how I'm going to put them through the machine, with the same fabric on the top. Okay, so we've sewn the 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to press it towards the C fabric. Just going to finger press it. Okay, now we turn it and join it. And as you can see, by doing it that way, those seams will nest nicely. Okay, so we've sewn it down there. open it up, and now we're going to push this one up. Again, just use your thumb, press this one down, and you can see that that will sit flatter if you do that. Now I'm going to just press that and then we'll trim it. So we trim this block now to 5 inches. Again, I just use a regular ruler for this. I'm going to take off the washi tape that I had on earlier. Alright, so I've put a little bit of washi tape on my ruler, and then that's going to be a 7-inch line, because the diagonal of a 5-inch square is 7 inches. And all I'm going to do, and you could do this in other ways I'm sure, is I'm going to mark, 3.5 on the ruler, so I can see where the center is. And that's why this ruler has lots of little marks on it. So I'm going to put the center on, is the first thing, and then I'm going to make sure this angle is correct. And now I'm going to trim it. And you'll see that I have got some around the edge. So that's how I just do it with a regular ruler. Okay, so then turn it, get your center correct. Oops, sorry, I'm slipping. Get your angle correct, and you can see that that 5-inch line is in the right place. So special rulers are great if you want to use them. For me, I just find they're very expensive, and the 1 or 2 I have bought for quilts, and then I don't really use them again. And you can do what you need to do with your 6.5 and your long ruler. Well, that's what I've found anyway. It's good to have options. Okay, step 3, we need our 6-inch A square, and we need the 6-inch C square. We've got 2 6-inch C squares. So this is the same as the other squares that we did. You've got 2 options. You can now sew a 1/4 inch scant seam down both sides and then cut on the drawn line. Or, and that's what I'm going to do, you can just cut all of them on the drawn line. I just find it quicker. Now the next is our 5 1/4 D squares, and we've already drawn our lines on the back of these. And this part, yeah, you do need to concentrate on so you don't actually accidentally turn something in the wrong way. So, all right, so we're placing this with the C fabric in the top left corner, the A fabric in the bottom right corner. Then we've already got our lines on this fabric, and we're going to place it so that this diagonal line runs from the top left to the bottom right. And you can also see there is plenty of extra. So I know it says scant seam on these, but it hasn't really made a difference. There's loads of fabric extra. Just double check that you have this in the right layout before you cut anything. And now what we're going to do, and I'm just going to pin these right, so we're actually going to sew on the drawn line. Again, put them in the correct layout. Okay, whoops, nearly did it. And I might And also, if you do find these videos helpful, if you could comment or share or like, I really appreciate that. It just helps my channel grow. Thank you. So we now have 4 of these, sew down the drawn line. And again, that reminder when you're sewing something and putting the corner in first to use a leader or ender so it doesn't get drawn into the machine. Okay, now this is the part where you just need to be very careful that you get it correct with your cutting. So I've taken them out and I have the C fabric in the top left and the A fabric in the bottom right. The final block will be different. The final block we want is this one. Okay, when I turn that, that's how it will look. So I just turned it, got A, C, and D. But because I'm going to trim the other side, I'm going to leave it in that shape. So I'm going to now trim on this right side. So just trim a 1/4 inch seam. Make sure when you're trimming that you have your A fabric on the bottom, C fabric on the top. I'm going to press them towards this D fabric, which for me is the yellow. And I'm going to check on the picture and show you. You can see that we have the correct layout. We've got D, C, A. So now to trim this block, we've already marked our ruler. So that's our mark for half of a 5-inch block on the diagonal. So just place that in the center. Make sure that this 45-degree line here is lined up, and then trim. There's our block, and I'll just trim the other 3 blocks. I also have on the back of these little sticky things to help with the grip, but I notice it's slipping a bit today, and they have been on there for years, so I might need to update them. But they do just help your ruler to kind of grip the fabric a bit. Now, next up is our flying geese. So you take our 3 5/8 inch squares, take the D square. Now place those so that your line's running downwards. Join them up. And now we're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch seam down both sides of the drawn line. And then you cut on the drawn line. Okay. Now press each of these back. So there's our 2 pieces so far. Now we're going to draw that line through the center of this point and this point here. And you'll stitch the same thing, scant 1/4 inch seam down out both sides of the drawn line. Okay, you'll see there that this line comes to into that point. The line might not be perfectly straight, but it's straight enough. And you'll cut on the drawn line. There's our flying geese. I'm going to trim that in a minute. But what's interesting, I haven't had this happen before, is I have this little extra piece of fabric in here, which is a bit annoying because that means I need to unpick and take it out. And can you see this one's done it as well? See this tiny piece of fabric here? Yeah. All right, so what I'll do is I'll unpick up here and there and then take that out and then restitch that piece. I'll press them and then I'll show you how to trim them. Okay, so now we have 4 flying geese to trim, and they get trimmed to 5 inches by 2 3/4. Now we don't want to lose the points, and to make sure we don't lose the points, we need to have at least 1/4 inch from the point of the goose to the edge of the fabric. You can see there's 1/4 inch on the point, And I'm just going to make sure that this bottom line is straight, and you always do that side first. You need to be 2 3/4 inches wide. And 5 inches. So we'll find our 2.5 and run that 2.5 line through the center and line up these lines so they're straight. So we have the 4 flying geese, and we're going to join that now to this block to make that block. So now it's just your regular seam across this. So we've got 4 of these blocks now. I'm going to go and just press these all towards the flying geese block. So this is the layout for the final block that we're making. You just join these together like that. Oops. Stitch down there, stitch down there. Once they're joined, then you'll join top to bottom that way. Then join this piece on and then join the top on. There's the 4 corner blocks joined and trimmed, and now we'll put this together. It's going to be a big block. I have to admit, these big blocks are beautiful, and they're actually making me reconsider my final layout. Yeah, I might go with something different. There's our top row. Middle row. I really like this. It's very different. Oops, that one goes that way. No, you did it wrong. And there's the final layout. So now I would join, I always join in rows, so I would join this like that, then those side pieces, and then I will join these 2 rows and then that row. So here's the finished block. I really like it, and I'm really rethinking my ideas for how I'm going to set out the quilt now that I've seen these bigger blocks. I might change my mind on the layout. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, if you could share this video with someone, like, subscribe, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks for watching. Bye.